Welcome to self-discoverywisdom.com, formerly known as Self-Discovery Media. On these podcasts, you're going to hear people who speak from the heart. They've taken the journey in life. Many things have happened to them, but they've changed it to happening for them. And in their strength, their courage, they've discovered their abilities and their wisdom, and they are now sharing it here with you. Do enjoy each show. We bring it to you with love and knowing that it's going to help you on your journey of life. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to This Story Matters, right here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. I'm your host, Sarah Troy, and my wonderful repeat guest, and she's been gone a while, and we're going to find out why, is Collin Ruiz. Well, where has she been? Well, folks, she's actually been in jail. She was put in jail for her brother's crime. She did nothing wrong. She was jailed for association with her own brother. We're going to be covering that and the injustice of it, as I've named the show, Injustice Served. How we can throw people away into jail just because of having association with a parent or a sibling or somebody they know that they perceive as guilty is beyond my comprehension. We're going to find out how that came about. But what really came about was what happened when she went to jail, the perspective that she put herself into, what did she learn from jail, and what has come out of it. And what has come out of it is a book called Buddha Behind Bars. She is a nutritionist. And please go back and listen to her previous show with us on healthy eating with Collin Ruiz. We did that back in 2017. And as I said, she'd been gone. I didn't know where she was. Now I know. But it was, what was she going to do in jail? She couldn't do nutrition there. So it ended up being soul nutrition, nutrition for the soul, because it certainly wasn't nutrition for the body. So this show is all about how she got there, dealing with a hand that was so wrongfully dealt. She had to leave behind a 14-year-old son. She's a single parent, and she had to face this journey, which was unjust, simply unjust. And how do you change your mindset and go in there and do the time? And how does it change you? Well, it changed her for the better, for sure. Not that there was anything wrong with her to start off with, but let's take this journey along with her and find out, because when she told me what was happening, I was gobsmacked, totally gobsmacked that this could happen in this day and age. And it really sends out a warning to people that where is the justice? Really, where is the justice? So, welcome back, my love. It's been a while, and yeah, wow. That's all
Thank
I
you
can say.
so
Wow.
much. I'm so excited to be here today. Yes, where should I start?
Oh, yes, you do
I can
start. Well,
start at the
yes, start at the beginning. Like, your brother, who is a pot seller, right? Which was
yes,
going legal all over the country, right? In so many states. But
right.
he was wanted in the state of Texas.
Yes, correct. He ran from the law when they came after him for marijuana. And so when that happened, I lost my brother. And that was very, very profound in and of itself.
Mm-hmm.
However, right away, friends were telling me, you've been so close to him. If they're going after him, they might go after somebody in the family. That that was actually kind of shocking. But
Mm-hmm.
I did reach out to a lawyer, and I found an absolutely wonderful lawyer. When I sat down with her, I was blown away. I left her office crying buckets. I was like, oh, what is going to happen to
Mm-hmm.
me? And then it was a whole year later. A whole year later, I was working out at a gym one morning, and a few gentlemen came up and asked me who I was and said they'd like to talk to me. That was all of a sudden, it was
Mm-hmm.
like, oh my God, here they are. Now what? And because I had talked to the lawyer and she had helped me, like how to have my affairs in order, because my son was only 14, who else would be around? Who could I reach out to? Where, what would happen in an emergency? And so I was ready. I was prepared. And they did let me go back to the house. And my son came out and I was crying. He was so brave. He was telling me, Mom, don't cry. You're strong. You've got this. Don't worry. That was one of the hardest things, though,
Yeah.
was leaving my son.
Yes. But before you go any further, it's like you I mean, quite honestly, it's meant to be you're innocent before perceived guilty or proven guilty. Yet they had your brother as guilty. And because they couldn't find him, they're just going after the
Correct.
next family member. Hello, America, land of the free. Excuse
No.
me? Excuse me? I mean, I
Yeah.
wanted to immigrate there at one point, and I'm glad I didn't.
Right.
I don't understand how they can just go after the next family member. It doesn't make sense to me. What, I mean, when you had that talk with that lawyer and she said, yes, this can happen and they can do that, what right do they have? You were not a
Well,
dealer.
you
You
learned
didn't
very
have anything, right?
Yes, I learned very quickly that I really had no rights. They were going to come after somebody. I had been very close to my brother. And that morning, I found out they went after 15 people, building a case around this whole thing. And that I was going to have to plead guilty to this long list of charges because they don't let you have your day in court. It is more about, are you going to cooperate? And cooperating is, who else are you going to turn in? How many people can they get to uh, charge? Because the more people they put in prison, I mean, I hate to say it, but it's a money game,
Yes, they get a
I
kickback.
believe.
Yes,
Right,
100% agree with you. Yes, it's a kickback. The prisons are not government run anymore, they're for profit. And, it's like
yeah,
the person ticketing a car. They have a quota. Traffic,
right,
speeding, they have a quota. And now it's got to be, you're not a human being, you're just a quota that they've got to
right,
reach. What's
yes,
this say about your country, folks? I hope that you were blown away by this and, just really, what does this say about your country? That they can throw anyone in jail just because of association.
right. And that's exactly what my lawyer kept saying over and over. How can we present you as having a relationship with your brother? Just having a relationship with
Yeah,
your brother,
right.
not as a dealer or being part of his organization. That I was like, well, yeah, how do we do that?
Mhm.
I went to birthday parties. I hung out with him. He supported me when I was hardly making anything and trying to survive as a single mother. And I was
As
really,
as
really
siblings will
grateful.
do, right?
Right,
Yes.
exactly. Exactly. We care about each other. We look out for each other. And that's the kind of relationship I had with my brother.
And for that, you went to jail.
Yes. And I was the last of the 15 to get sentenced. And I found out that only one person, I think, had got less than 5 years sentence. And I was really, really terrified
Mm.
that my sentence was going to be 5 years or more. Um, and however, at that sentencing, my lawyer talked to the prosecuting lawyer and said, I will help continue this case. Let's drop her to a minor participant. And they agreed. So they went to the judge. he started writing things down like crazy. My lawyer turned to me and said, he's figuring out your sentence right now. We have nothing else to say. We cannot influence what he will do. It's written down. So what's going to happen? And when he said 2 years with 3 years, 3.5 years of supervised probation after the fact, I was actually very, very relieved. I was stunned, but I was still relieved that it was only 2 years instead of 5.
It still shouldn't have been any time at all.
Right.
It still shouldn't have been. It's
Yeah.
I'm still grappling with the idea that just because I mean, I'm looking at certain corrupt politicians. Do you throw the whole family in jail because of the politician? Because I mean, are the jails completely filled at taxpayers' money, by the way? Are they completely filled with innocent people just because they want to reach their quota? This opens up an entire can of worms.
And while I was there, I met plenty of women and heard plenty of stories where a young girl was on a first date and the man she was with stopped at a friend's house that happened to get busted for marijuana, and she had a 2-year prison sentence. I was
No, that does
flabbergasted.
no. I mean, this
Leaving
is
her
shame on
family.
them. This is shame on the justice system. I'm sorry. This is shame on them. You are so desperate to get your quota that you're going to go after innocents instead of going after the actual culprits. Or, just, oh, I don't care, throw them in jail. Have we gone back into the dark ages? Because this really, I mean, I've done shows on people who have gone to jail, and you're the first one wrongfully imprisoned. Others have said, yes, I committed the crime, and going to prison was the greatest gift because it put me straight. And who I am today and what I'm doing today is a contributor and not a causer. But to hear that people are just being thrown in jail just for that quota. And again, folks, I'm reminding you, this is your tax dollars at work of housing people in jail that should not be there, right? Affecting and disrupting their lives, giving them a criminal record that will be with them for the rest of their lives. God knows what other stresses and post-traumatic stress and everything they're going to go through for being in there, and always knowing that they were innocent and nobody gave a damn because they wanted to reach their quota. What does this say about you, America? I'm sorry, I have to keep repeating that because this is absolutely disgraceful. The
I'm on the
politician
same
that I
page.
interviewed wants me to send this to her, and I'm going to, because I don't know if it happens in Memphis, but it I don't know. This is all happening in Texas. Is this, is
Right.
this what Texas is all about?
Well, unfortunately, my lawyer, and I had to get another lawyer in Texas, and he came to Colorado because Colorado is where I live, where I have resided
Yeah, and how did
for
they have that
many, many years.
jurisdiction to extradite you from another state?
They, the way that I understand it is that it's indicting me because of the case. So I didn't have a choice. When I got out, I had to move the case to Colorado so that I could live here when I got out, because I was going to be on probation for 3 years. So because the case started in Texas when I think it was somebody narked. It was a narc situation where they threatened somebody and said, we're going to put you in prison unless you just give us 5 people
Mm-hmm.
to put that we can go after. And that unfortunately is also very, very common.
Yes.
And so people start saying, well, who can I narc on? Who can
Yeah.
I tell on? Who can I give up? And everybody else they went after, in my brother's case, actually said things like, well, I saw her at his birthday party. So they were looking, I mean, these people who were charged were looking for any way to negate their own sentences. And I was thrown under the bus
Exactly.
many, many times.
But I mean, was there any rational, common sense thought in their heads? It's his sister. She would be at his party. They're close. What's it got to do with his criminal enterprise? And quite honestly, when you're talking criminal enterprise, pot isn't it. It's legal in most states nowadays. There are so many things that are so much more dangerous. Why are you not going after the fentanyl people? Right? You know, there's just so much more out there that is deadly. So this again just felt like it's vindictiveness and, you know, filling in a quota, because this doesn't at all represent police work to me. This is bullying.
And going after the easy targets.
Yes, yes,
Because,
lazy, right?
right,
Yeah.
right. You get more targets that way. You know, the
Intimidation.
easy,
And they
right.
thought there was meant to be a law against intimidation. Right? I thought that you things got thrown out if the people were intimidated to confess or do something they against their will. That obviously is only in the movies and certainly not in reality.
Exactly.
Did they ever find your
Yeah.
brother?
No, unfortunately, I have never found out what happened to him or um, if he's still alive. Um, I really had to go through a huge grieving process about losing my brother as if he died, because we have still no idea what happened to this day with
And
him.
would it have been like him to have not reached out or not contacted you in some way, or the family? Would he have just buggered off and not cared, or would you think that he would have reached out if he could?
I think he would have if he could.
Hmm.
Yes, I absolutely do believe that if he could, he would. And that um and he my niece says he has children
Hmm.
here, and I think it would be really dangerous for him to reach out,
Yeah,
not only for himself, but for my nieces, um, who I care so much about. I
exactly.
just love them dearly.
Is Texas the only state that pot is not legal?
No, there are other states. At that time, so this was 2010. And so at that time, um, yeah, Texas was one of the worst.
Mm,
And my lawyer told me that when he came to visit me, he was like, if this case was out of Colorado, even before marijuana was legalized, it doesn't matter. You would have never, ever gone to prison. But you're going to Texas where they believe marijuana is as big as drug as anything else. And they're going to prosecute you to the fullest extent that they possibly can.
even though you didn't take it, you didn't sell it, you didn't have anything to do with it.
I've never been arrested in my whole life for
Mm,
anything,
right.
nothing,
And they didn't take
nothing
into
at all.
consideration you're a mother, you have a child, none of that.
No, and it took a lot writing a big paper to the judge because my son was on that Asperger's, what do you
Hmm.
call it, Asperger's spectrum. And he had a very, very difficult childhood. And I had been a single mother since he was 10 months old. And at 14,
Yeah,
I had never been away from him for more than 2 weeks.
yeah.
One time I had been away for 2 weeks, and my brother had taken care of him, So this was like, I was so afraid for what would happen to him, more afraid than I was for
Hmm.
myself going into prison.
Did that have any consideration?
No, Not
You're
that I
right.
saw.
Right. Total, I don't give a damn. This goes with the book that we're talking about right now, Our Forgotten Children. And,
Yes.
it's the criminal justice. I think there needs to be a chapter in that on how we don't pay attention to children's needs. And we just throw them away. We throw the parents away. Um, we certainly have gone backwards, for all the technology, for all the advancements, humanity has gone backwards.
Mhm.
The empathy or the compassion, the common sense seems to have
Right.
completely gone out the door. And, again, what does this say about us as human beings? That we can just throw people away because, and not
Mhm.
look at them as human beings, not look at them as souls and hearts and spirits. It really is what's wrong with the world, desperately what's wrong with
Right.
the world and what needs to change. So that takes us that you are now in jail. Your son is placed with your sister, is that right?
Yes. It was my sister and her husband in the, let's see, western part of Colorado.
So that gave you peace of mind that he was with family and safe.
Yes. And then my other sister and my other brother down in New Mexico took him on all school breaks and over the summer.
Hmm.
So he had two really complete places to be. And he was very supported. My dad also helped my siblings financially, as well as other friends that stepped up. I had a fund and friends could contribute to help while I was away.
And what about, did he come to see you or, communicate with you, or you just,
Yes, my sister Greta was just a rock for me, and my other brother, and they would bring him on spring break, Christmas break, and in the summer. So that was really, really special, and especially the first time, because
yeah.
I think both of us were so afraid of
Hmm.
who we would become without each
Hmm.
other.
Hmm.
And so that first time was a lot of tears, but at the same time, one of the funniest things my son said was like, well, it kind of just looks like you're in a really bad hotel.
No luxuries here, mate.
Right, exactly. But I
And
was able to reassure him that I was still me.
and be reassured that he's okay without you, which is heart gut wrenching
Yes,
because you don't want him to be that, but at the same time, peace of mind knowing that he is.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. And
So
there's
in
a
that,
whole chapter about mothering from prison
mm,
and just what is it like when you want to give, you want to be there, and at the same time, how to let go of expectations and trust that he can take, he can find happiness and that people are taking care of him well.
right. And you know that although you're going through this, he is too. What does he learn from it? How does it strengthen him? How does it prepare him for the future? All right. So, it's never wasted lesson, however hard that lesson is, right?
Right, right. We have a fantastic relationship now. I really feel like when I got out, we were able to come together and really expand and grow our relationship in very, very positive ways. And I feel like there was something about finding happiness within and recognizing that a mother will go all out for her child. I remember the first time he said, oh, you got water for me. It's so different to have somebody who will do the little things
Yes. Yes.
when you're just thrust out in the great big world.
Hmm. And it's also, we in our conversation before the show, you talked about that if it hadn't been you, they would have gone after your brother. And they were determined to
Yes,
have somebody from the family, determined.
absolutely.
And so
Yes.
your family, never any shame or blame, but support because basically you were sacrificing yourself for the family.
Yes. Yes. And I really had to sit with that
Mm.
and learn from that. And I did feel that I really grew as I explored who I was and what it meant to be Collin.
Yeah.
I was born the oldest of 5 children. I took on a lot of responsibility, and a lot of responsibility was thrust upon me when I was really young. And so just coming to terms about what I needed to hold on to and what I needed to let go of, and how could I be more authentically me and let go of responsibility, and just decide what my responsibilities were going to be.
Mm. Well, I mean, I do hope, and it does sound like that the appreciation for what you were doing definitely was there from the family, and as it should be, because this isn't a minor change in one's life. This is major, and uh,
Right.
and I also know that you're in an entire campaign to pay to get your name expunged so that you don't have a
Yes.
criminal record. And part of the fundraising that you're going to be doing for your book is also for that as well. And folks, just if you're at
Absolutely.
all gobsmacked, outraged, in disbelief of what we've just talked about so far, I'm begging you to get behind her so that she can actually get her name cleared, because it never should have been put up there in the first place. And let's give her freedom back, please. So you are a nutritionist, and that is what our last show was on nutritional eating and ancestral eating, etc. Very, very insightful. Please go back and listen to that. But here you are going to jail with nutrition. Forget it, it's slop. There isn't anything healthy in there at all. So trying to maintain your physical balance because there isn't the nutrition to do that. You talked to various people and decided to step into Buddhism before you went in, thus kind of becoming the nutritionist of the soul, which set you on a totally different journey. How did that come about?
Absolutely. Because of my son's situation, and I was trying to set him up for success, I wanted therapists available to him everywhere he would be. So I found a new therapist down in New Mexico who ended up being just, he ended up just being so good to me.
Hmm.
And he offered me sessions before I was going to go in for free. And one of those, I was just crying and crying. And he said, first, you can't cry and breathe at the same time.
Hmm.
Let's breathe. So he gave me some breathing exercises. And then he said, do you want to go to prison, or would you like to go to a monastery? And I was like, oh my gosh, take me to a monastery. And he said, it's about practicing. It's about practicing being present in the moment.
Hmm.
It's about learning about letting go of expectations. So, how about you come back tomorrow and take your Buddhist vows? And I
Wow.
said, okay.
Mm.
And I did it. I just felt like it resonated with me.
Yeah.
I felt like so strongly, just as strongly as I felt about being a mother.
Hmm.
I felt this is a way in that I feel can really benefit me. And so 4 days before going to prison, I became a Buddhist. And I walked in that door saying, this is going to be my monastery with 300 other women walking around me.
Hmm.
And I slowly but surely built up my own practice of meditation, yoga, qigong, even just meditating while I walked around the track and watching sunsets. Yeah,
Well, basically, what you're doing is you're removing yourself from prison, right? And presenting yourself in the vision of what is at peace to you. So it's, many people are in prison in a marriage, or in prison in the workforce, or in prison in something else. And I think it's like if we change the way we look at what prison is to us, I mean, you are literally in prison, but again, but if you change the perception of where you are, and I'm in the monastery here to learn, here to absorb,
Yeah,
here to become, right? And then
exactly.
it changes your whole perspective over it, how you're going to interact with it, also how you're going to get through it.
100%. And before I went working with people, my mom unfortunately died early. She was only 47 when she died of cancer.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so, yeah, that's a whole nother story.
Yes. Yes.
But
Gosh, all that
that,
going on at the same time. Oh my God. Yeah.
so she's really what helped me. That's how I became a nutritionist, was after my mom died. I wanted to support women undergoing cancer treatments.
Hmm.
And it was her spirit of just, well, I am in it. What can I do
Yes.
while I'm in it? And so when I went to prison, I am like, I am here. This is where I am.
You're in your
How
own
can
cancer,
I?
so to speak.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And there are a lot of things came up. You have to ask for help when you're ill,
Yeah.
most, and people struggle with that. And I did.
Hmm.
I definitely struggled with that. And so circumstance can make us feel trapped, alone all the time. And that to me are like the common threads
Yeah.
that I was really wanting to study and learn about and find out how I could grow.
Now, of course, Buddhism is no meat, no dairy. It's like vegan food. How did that work for you in jail? Because I'm just putting
Well,
those two don't necessarily go together.
well, first of all, Buddhism, monks would take alms. Alms is food and things that are given.
Right.
So even though that vegetarian and veganism is seen as common in Buddhism, it's because there is a precedent for not killing sentient beings,
Hmm.
not killing animals. However, they will eat meat when it is given to them, if
Right.
that is the meal that is given. So
Right.
I really had to go in there with this
Hmm.
idea: what is on my plate and how can I make it just a tiny bit better?
Right. So eat it with gratitude, right?
Yes,
Yes. So
yes,
I am grateful for the food. Thank you for your sacrifice. Yeah.
exactly.
Hmm.
And I did, because it was limited, I could buy food from commissary. My family really helped me out on that too. And I lived on oatmeal almost every day for 2 years. Um, and they did have mackerel and freeze dried brown rice. Because I was getting so few nutrients, there was
Mm.
no vegetables.
What?
Um, well, okay. The funniest story was waiting in line one day and hearing people going, "There's something green on the plate. What is that?" And we were served a little dollop of salad one time in 2 years.
No
And
greens whatsoever. What were you served?
well, there were canned collard greens at times. However, those were only served on days that they made chicken, and the chicken legs, there's never a chicken breast in prison, because we're getting served seconds and thirds.
Right.
And so they would get the chicken grease and pour that over the collard greens and
Uh,
put vinegar on it, and it was unedible.
yeah.
I could not eat it.
Mm.
So I lived on mackerel and brown rice and oatmeal.
Well,
Those
mackerel
were my
is a really good
staples.
fatty fish. So there's the omega-3, right? Brown rice is
Right.
good fiber and has other nutrients in,
Exactly.
and oats are very good for you as well. But yeah, so where are the greens? I mean, I live on 6 vegetables a day. I don't, I won't survive.
Right.
Yeah,
Yes.
difficult.
No vegetables and very, very little fruit
Wow.
too.
Yeah, I mean,
So
if you want these people to be rehabilitated and go back into society as a whole person, but what you're doing is depleting them on every single level. emotionally, morally, physically, spiritually, breaking them down so they are nothing when they go out. And then how do they survive life again? You know, it's yeah. Again, that system, I've done a few shows on it. Boy, does it need to be overhauled. Absolutely overhauled. But there's many things
Right.
in, you know, in society
Yes.
that need to be overhauled, and that's one of them. And most certainly, we don't throw innocents in jail. You know, the jails are already bursting at the
Right.
seams.
And just absolutely. And women in our society.
Yeah.
One of the saddest things was hearing that there was women that felt safer in prison than they had on the outside, or that they laughed more often in prison than outside.
Yeah.
And I was flabbergasted. I
Yes.
was blown away.
Yeah.
But so many women had come from very, very abusive situations
Hmm.
where they really truly were a victim,
Mm.
and there was nothing supporting them. They had no support, no legal recourse, nothing.
Just thrown away
And then they
people.
were the ones that ended up in,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, I talk about this all the time virtually in every show about, you know, we've become such a throwaway society. You know, we're so wasteful. We could see it in our shopping, in our the food, you know, in our plastics, but we can see it in the way we treat human beings. We just throw people away. You know, that's why the series The Forgotten Children, we're throwing our children away, and then we expect them to be functioning adults. I've got a book, another one coming out next year will be on the forgotten seniors. And it's like, oh, you're too old. Why don't you hurry up and die? Right? And it's like, what is
right,
it saying about us as a society that we do not value life and that we do not nurture
correct,
life and that we don't place the importance upon life and that we're so jaded and so so numbed that we cannot feel
right,
life anymore. And where's the compassion? Where's the empathy? I think they've all, you know, become completely, there's a word I'm looking for it, but it's just humanoid, not human beings, humanoid,
right,
robotic, right? With no
right,
sense of feeling, no sense of compassion, no sense of caring. And that is the downfall of humanity, is when we stop caring about each other. So nutrition for the soul is you're certainly not getting it for the body. All right. It's and
right,
hearing all the stories out there of other women and Can, as you said, being so saddened the fact that they felt safer and they had a better life in jail than they did at home. You know, that what again does that say? That their quality of life has
right.
been. Um, did you yourself become the teacher, the mentor? Because I can imagine you being so.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
It was kind of a natural fit.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just about nutrition. I did have somebody send me a book for just human anatomy. And I would have women say, why am I hurting over here? What's happening over here? What's happening in my throat? How come I'm so sore? And so I was able to like open my book and talk about our bodies. And this was sometimes the first time women really had that kind of education,
Mm.
just learning about themselves. And I was very, very determined. I can another shout out to Buddhism about living awake. I
Yes.
was really determined to live awake. And I really wanted to show women too what was how our response can add life to our
Mm.
environment, our responses, our reactions, how we respond. And so if they could be kinder and gentler to their own bodies,
Mhm.
they could be living more fully.
And, you know, let's hope that you changed their perspective and the way they saw things and the way they saw themselves, that when they were released, that they didn't go right back in it. You know, like a drug addict, you know, will leave rehab and go straight back onto the street for another drug. Um, and when you've got people in jail all they do, if nobody's helped them evolve or go up to another level or become more aware or see their possibilities, they go right back into the lion's den again. So hopefully you've helped a few people shift their perspective and shift their expectation of their own lives, that they didn't go back into that lion's den.
Yes, I hope so. And I really feel like there was a lot of women saying, finally, I have time for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I was always going, yes, time for yourself to learn about yourself,
Yes.
to help create the world that you want to live in. So feel your strength, because
Mm.
there's strength in there. And when you go back out, remember that you can create your world. You can have strength because it's inside you.
Always inside of us. It doesn't matter what walls they put around us, the strength always resides in. And it's always waiting, just waiting to come out. It's waiting for us to discover. And I always say that, when people have that cosmic two by four for whatever reason that flattens them, that ashes them, how you rise is in
Yes.
in our courage and our strength, in the discovery of our abilities, in the discovery of who we are and what's important. And that lesson, rising from those ashes is sometimes the hardest, but also the best lesson to learn about just how
Yes.
awesome and flawsome you really are, and that how you've been selling yourself short for so long, right? And stepping into a
Right.
meaningful purpose. So, what has it taught you about your purpose now? Now that you're on the outside.
A lot of really, really wonderful things. I was so afraid of becoming bitter
Yeah.
and frozen.
Mm.
Those were my words that I was like, those were my fearful words. And once I was there, I was just like, wait a minute, I'm just here. So how can I soften to
Mhm.
myself? How can I be more gentle to myself? And so I came out with much more of this purpose of things just are.
Mm.
Stress is always there, no matter what. But how can I change how it affects me? How can I find and be grateful for everything? I even developed this little you've heard of a vicious cycle?
Mhm.
In Buddhism, there's a virtuous cycle
Mm.
where it just takes one calm moment, one positive thought, or one just breath,
Yeah.
um, and one thing that you're grateful for.
Yes.
And you don't have to have it all at once.
Right.
It was so noisy in prison. You're
Mhm.
never alone.
Mm.
There's you're always there. So calm moments to me felt very, very
Yeah.
rare.
Yeah.
But grateful that my son was alive, that
Mm.
my son was getting cared for, that we still had communication
Mm.
and I could see him. And he was still my son. I was still his mother.
Mhm.
And I could be grateful even for that, as well as kind of finding.
Sorry, folks, we've had some internet interruption here. You're talking about the doves and the way they're diving into the mud. You can't see what it is they're going for, but it's the enthusiasm, isn't it? It's the enthusiasm and the possibilities,
Yes,
and the hope that there's something there.
the faith, the faith
Yes.
that there's something there. And one little breeze would come and they would all disappear. And
Mm.
you would never know there was a bird
Mm.
around.
Hmm.
And so I used to think, okay, one little morsel every time I get to talk to my son, that's like finding those seeds.
Yeah.
It's like offering me growth,
And it
and I
stays
can
with you,
grow
because
from
you
that.
don't take it for granted. You hold that memory
Yes,
of the last
absolutely.
visit, the last conversation. And I think,
Yes,
both for your son and for yourself and for the rest of the family, because you're not so obtainable on an everyday basis and they can only have certain time with you, it makes that time more precious. And I think back to the days where we used to have to write letters to people, because I've pretty well lived disconnected from my family for the last 40 something years. We've all lived in different countries. And it used to be, you know, a phone call was very, very expensive. So it was writing letters. So you'd look forward to the next letter and you would read the letter over and over again, right? And then you'd think about it before you writing a letter back. And in a lot of ways, kind of the experience you had there was the appreciation of the contact that you had, holding on to the conversation that you had, and then looking forward to the next one. So instead of taking it for granted, it became more precious and valuable.
Absolutely. And really understanding connection and
Hmm.
oneness.
Yeah.
I never received so many letters or birthday cards as I did in prison. And I felt so grateful
Hmm.
and I felt the love. It was astonishing to me that
Yes.
I could be so far away in my own little world here, but
You're in
I
monastery.
felt loved.
Yes.
Exactly. I
I mean,
really felt loved.
nobody wants a bad experience, where you went to jail, again, totally, utterly unjust. You've certainly got to look at the system. It's so wrong. But there are people that may go through cancer for a couple of years, or people that go through a bad divorce or go through something else. There's always something that we're going to go through for whatever time period. And it's always that discovery again of our courage, our strength, our abilities, our possibilities that we discover about ourselves, why we're going through it. This again was your cancer. This was your
Right.
prison, literally. But this was also your self-discovery to have, because what else were you going to do while you were there but to discover yourself? And one has to step into that interest. You have to step into that open and ready to receive. You have to step into it. I am present in the moment, and I'm not going to live in the fear of expectation.
Yes, the dark night of the soul.
Yeah.
That was my dark night of the soul. And that came from a poem that I rewrote as my own, Dark Night of the Soul. But it was about a monk who was imprisoned by other monks, where he wrote this, and it became a whole thing, actually, like psychology
Hmm.
of when we're at our lowest, where what can arise from that,
Yes. Yes.
what can grow from that.
Yeah.
And being awake was being able to keep my eyes open,
Hmm.
not go after an escape,
Yeah.
mental, emotional, even sleep. I felt like that I watched some people sleep so much all night and as many hours of the day as they could. And I would rather be outside. I
Mm.
would rather be outside if I possibly could, sitting in the sun, meditating, watching the birds.
Hmm.
I didn't want to face the wall.
Right.
That was something that came up over and over.
Well,
Um,
how was it with the wardens and with the, what do you call them there? You know,
guards.
the guards, kind of watching the way you were dealing through it. I mean, because they're there to observe, see who are the troublemakers, keep the peace, but they see you keeping your own peace and having peace, a reflection on others. Did they ever say anything to you?
Not very much. There's a lot to keep the guards and inmates apart, even going as far as the guards rotate every 3 months.
Mm,
So if you have a guard watching you on the compound, you will only have that guard for 3 months. And then he'll get rotated out, and then you'll have a new one in. And so there was very few guards, and they could be positioned like go to the kitchen for three
yeah,
months
yeah.
and watch a kitchen. So you did know some. And I do write one experience because you get so used to thinking, well, they're not people either. It
Mm,
is us and them.
yeah.
And I use a metaphor of if you were living in your house with a big snake,
Hmm.
like uh, those big pythons,
Hmm.
you kind of want to know where it is, but
Don't want to be stepping
at
on it
all
in the middle
times,
of the night.
right, you don't want to step on it, but at the same time, I'm not going to go up and talk to it. I'm not going to
Right.
cuddle.
Yes, yes. Come
And
here,
so
sneaky,
there
sneaky.
was,
No.
right, right. And so there was one time where I walked by a guard. It was a weekend. And I remember that because of the clothes I was wearing. I was going to the phone. And as I walked by him, he said, "Hello, Ruiz." And I didn't even know what to do. It was like, what? Somebody talk to me like a human.
Right. Yes.
And I was literally like in shock. And it actually imprinted that memory because it was so shocking. Even though he was being human, he was
Yeah.
just saying,
Well, I mean, that's
hello.
again part of something wrong with the system. I understand why they do it because they don't want favoritism and they don't want favors happening and all of that. But at the same time, you've made it, just not even the shepherd and the sheep, because the shepherd is more in tune with the sheep, but you've made it so, robotic again that there's no human connection whatsoever. So how can trust be built up? How can, communication, how can that observation grow from there? Do they write reports of what they've seen? Do they pass it on to the next one? Or is it just, no, don't give a damn, my shift is over, off I go. And it's like, again, it's not productive, is it? To have them
No,
just, I mean, it could be just like a camera, big brother watching you, and it'd have the same effect.
right. A lot of the guards come from military backgrounds.
Yeah,
So
scary.
yeah, exactly. Because you really do learn to just say, yes, sir, no,
Yeah.
sir.
Hmm.
And there was a couple of guards. There was one in particular that when you went to go get your mail, even if it said Ruiz on there and he's holding it up, he would say your number. And
Mm.
you couldn't just raise your hand to get your mail. You couldn't say, yeah, I'm here. You had to repeat back your number.
Yeah, because he wanted to demean you.
I am.
Yes.
Right.
Hmm.
And those little things
Yes.
they were very, very frustrating, very
Right.
hard to swallow.
Yeah, because it wasn't treating you as a human being. It's telling you what you were, and you were
Right.
nothing but a number.
Right.
Right. Right. And so,
Yes.
but that isn't on you. That's on him. But God forbid he should see you as a human being. Because
Right.
that actually then it reflects back on him. What kind of human being is he? And this is what we
Right.
see by having military type people there, not people that maybe have a social work background, which would be better. Um,
Right.
is they're so scared to drop this facade for the fear of who they really are. So they live in their facade, and
Yes.
and because their facade is in control, has control. I've got you where I want you. But if that facade dropped and they had to really look at themselves and go in, they wouldn't like what they see. So it's easier for them to
Right.
live in that facade and treat you as, less than an animal, because that makes them feel big. Yeah.
Yeah. My boss was one of those types, and he was a very tall, athletic man. And he didn't speak Spanish, which I thought was a little amazing because so much of our population only spoke Spanish and didn't speak English. But he would say things like, if you don't understand what I'm saying, I'm going to be so mad. And you're just like, okay, okay, I'm trying.
Yeah.
But I was like, you're not trying to understand
Right.
us at all if you
No.
can't even learn a common language that's prevalent in
Why
this.
you in the why you in this arena? If
Right,
you're unwilling to learn the language and you can't communicate and you can't even be friendly and say, look, languages are difficult for me, help me here, be my translator. You're willing because they're willing to at least find a path of communication. But when
right.
they're not willing to do that, again, their own inadequacy, their own insecurity being imposed. And this is the thing to
Mm,
remember when you've got those kind of people that lord over in their title and their entitlement. It is because they are so small inside and they're so insecure inside and they're so discombobulated inside and they're unwilling to take the journey that holding on to that position is everything for them, for the fear of losing themselves instead of finding themselves. Because they don't look at it as finding themselves,
absolutely.
they look at it as losing themselves, right? Yeah.
We had an officer that was real big on saying, you have to call me a correction officer. And if you're here, that means you need correction. And again, it was like demanding that we give our power to
Yes.
him.
Yes.
And that was a little rough, a little rough.
You
And
know,
I would go back to
you
compassion.
give them the words, but you don't have to give them
Yes,
the vibe, right? You know, here are the words you want to
exactly.
hear, but there is no frequency in them.
Yes. Learning compassion, that was one of the things that I felt like I needed to study and
Mm,
learn about and really, really have an understanding where I could feel my compassion. Because there are a lot of inmate stories where you're going, wow, not only what a rough life you lived, but you also interacted very, very roughly,
mm.
and maybe violently. And wow.
But that's all they know. If people
Right.
don't know the other side of life, if they don't know compassion, and or compassion is considered a weakness, and that, being violent,
Yes.
getting before being God, if that's the way they've been brought up, that's their survival. We can't
Right.
blame them for where they're at. But are they
Right.
willing to see another path? Are they willing not to be corrected, but to have their perception change of what else is possible other than the violence?
Right. Absolutely. There was, I can't wait to read your book because one of the early experiences I had was getting my tray of food. And as I was walking to a table, a gal walks up to me and she looks at my tray and she's like, "Oh, I bet you don't like that." And she just took something off my tray and turned around and walked away to go eat it. And I was like, well, wait a minute, what just happened? And I realized over time that a lot of filters, a
Yes.
lot of women weren't brought up
Mm,
with knowing how to take care of themselves because they were not taken care of.
right. Or there's
And so,
it, it's my survival. I want it, I'll take it. And because that's
right,
the only way I've ever been taught. Take what you want. Nobody's going to
right.
give you anything. Right.
Yes. Especially when I think of kids, I mean, I just wanted to give more to my son when I got
Yes.
out.
Yes.
I just wanted to give everything and be there all the time. And one of the things we realized right away is that we said thank you 100 times a day, and
Mm,
we still do.
hmm.
But that wasn't something that we did all the time before prison
Right.
and
So a lesson for
afterwards.
both of you, like you're paying somebody else's debt, and not even a debt that should have been paid, because there's so many other crimes that are just so much worse. It's just dirty business by the police force along the way. Yes, I've said it, dirty business, a cowardly business to throw innocents in jail just for your quota, cowardly. But the lesson that, of what you became out of it, but also, as you said, your interaction with family, with your son. But for him, the you never kind of, why did you do it, mom, or why this or why that. It's like, you're paying the price for uncle, and you're paying the price for the family, and that it just built an even better connection, an even tighter connection
Yeah.
of gratitude and appreciation for each other. There's already the
Yes.
love, but love gets taken for granted. Love will
Yes.
always be there. And I've said
Yes.
to my children before, I love you, I'll always love you, but it doesn't mean I have to like you right now. I don't have to like your choices right now, right?
Right.
And I don't like who you
Right.
are at the present moment, but I'll always love you. But until that light changes, you're hard to deal with. And I think it's okay to say that, because you're disapproving of the actions they're taking. It's got nothing to do with the soul heart connection that you have with them as mother and child.
And setting yourself up for success. One of
Yeah.
the things that a therapist did with my son and I before I left, he told us, I know that you love each other. You know you love your son. He knows he loves you. But what are you going to do to show that love when you're far apart, when you're not
Hmm.
together?
Hmm.
And he said, you have to take care of yourself. You have to love yourself to come through this so that you have the love to show each other when you're back together.
And
And
show
that
it where you
was
can through it too. Yes.
absolutely, that was so important
Mm.
because I think it felt that we had something tangible, that love was more tangible, and that when we were being gentle with ourselves, we were being gentle because we wanted to be able to be filled up with love and be able to express that to each other.
Going back to your brother for a moment, is it still an open case in trying to find him, or is the case closed now because you served time for him?
I had 3 different lawyers look at my book before, and I had to take certain things out of there because their advice was that yes, it was still an ongoing case. And
Even though it's
so,
illegal in so many places, and you
yeah,
went to jail for him. Yeah, right.
right.
Yeah.
Because he didn't pay for the crime. And, I have no idea where else they would go with it. But,
You paid for it
um,
for him. They got their pound of
right,
flesh that they wanted. They got
right,
their quota. So, why are you spending more time and effort on that when there are so many
right.
obvious crimes going on all the time that really should be addressed?
Yeah. I did one more, I did another little study when I was in prison. I took a gender and society class from a community college and doing homework, writing everything down. One of the things in our textbook was that women, um, a third of women have been sexually assaulted. If 10 women, 3 of them might.
Yeah.
But when you look at violence
Mm,
as well as sexual assault, it is more like 9 out of 10 women.
yeah. Yes.
And I did that. I walked through the compound, I checked every floor, and those were my numbers. 9 out of 10 women have received, violence in the abuse that they received. So it's a struggle of suffering and how
Yeah.
to grow from that. And that, again, we can choose to hold on to that, or we can choose to let go of that.
But that's if they have the help and the guidance to do so. And if they
You are
don't have the
so right.
help and the guidance there, then all they're going to do is go out and repeat the same pattern because nobody's changed the program. In fact, they've become more
Yeah.
embittered, or they've become tougher
Yeah.
and more
Yep.
disconnected and more wanting to commit violence. So, again, you're throwing people in there, treating them like nothing. What are you doing to rehabilitate or to reprogram or to prepare them to get back into the world in a different channel, not the same one that they were in before? We're letting these people down. God, that's another book series that's got to come out with our forgotten prisoners. Because
Well, and
yeah.
the coming home, the probation period, 3.5 years,
Hmm.
and those rules that you can go back for, those aren't laws that you break. It's something like if you decided to date somebody who had a record. I didn't date for 3.5 years. I didn't want to be like, oh, so guess what? First date, yep, I gotta know your whole life story.
Yeah.
Have you ever been arrested?
Right.
Because I could go back to prison.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, I don't want to go back. But I saw women coming back.
Hmm.
One woman for going to stay with her mother who was dying in the hospital. And she stayed an extra day and didn't tell her probation officer. And she told him right as the fact was happening, but she went back to prison. She broke her probation and went back to prison.
Again, where is the common sense? Where's the empathy? Where's the compassion?
Right. 3.5 years of where a probation officer could come to my house day or night unannounced, walk through the house, look at what was happening, and decide if I was doing all right or not,
And
if I
again,
was
look at the
on the right
corruption of
path.
that. I mean, you're placing your future in the hands of one person, his word against yours, and they can throw you
Yeah.
away out of spite. And of course, then we see a
Yeah.
great deal of abuse there, where they will take
Yes.
advantage. If you don't do me a favor, I'm going to say this and say that. So they're still imprisonated, yet they're meant to emotionally move on.
Absolutely. That was one, it was a very, I came out with a lot more strength, but I was still something that I was afraid that there
Mhm.
was actual real paranoia because the fear was real,
Yeah,
because there were so many rules that could be broken so easily.
yeah.
And I just insulated myself. Friends could come over and things like that, but I was very, very, very careful.
How did you financially survive? Because to get back into your business, how did you manage
They wouldn't
that?
allow me to be, yeah, they wouldn't allow me to be self-employed at first.
Why?
So I
If that's
went
what you were
almost,
before, why can't you be it again? What's the problem with that?
again, maybe I was dealing pot as a nutritionist. I don't
Jesus.
know. It was never
Oh,
explained.
oh
Yeah,
God, it's
so,
pathetic.
right. And so there's a lot of places that won't hire you with a
Right.
record.
Yes.
And I had worked as for the state. I had been a research associate for 20 years prior, my first career, and I could never go back to work in government.
Right.
So I ended up working in Safeway in the
Uh-huh.
deli department.
Uh-huh.
And because my manager would get a phone call from my probation officer, she knew my story and she gave me the worst shifts possible. My
Exactly.
son would go to school at like 8 in the morning. He'd get home at 3. I would have to go to work and be there from 3 until 10. And I would tell her, look, I'm a single mom. I am trying to be there for my son. Can I have a few evenings off? I will work 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning. I don't care. But come on, let me have some evenings with my son. But again, I felt like I had no recourse and I was seen as a criminal. I
Yes.
was seen as something less than.
Right. Without people bothering to know your story, without people bothering to know anything. And it's like, the Don Rose four agreements. Speak your
Yes,
word with integrity. Don't assume, ask. Ask why you were in jail. Ask what the circumstances were instead of just assuming you are a criminal and you will always be so, right? And obviously it is uh, do your very best based on what you can do, not what somebody else's expectation is, and speak your word. Um, I've forgotten what the other one is, but they're all very good
yeah,
codes of conduct. But it is about owning ourselves. But it's also this, we've become just like with your brother, he was guilty before being proven innocent. And you, by association, were guilty even though you were innocent. And this is the screwed up society that we're in now, is that we judge people without knowing their story. We judge people without knowing their circumstances. There's always a backstory. Now, let's face it, there are some bad people out there. They're just bad
absolutely.
people. They were born that way, they were brought up that way. It's too late for them to change. The core is too rotten, and they always will be. But you've got people through circumstances in life, situations in life, um, just being built, being wrong place at the wrong time, a bad hand, and it changed their life completely. And they're trying to navigate the way out of it. And instead of judging and condemning and persecuting them even more, why are we not supporting and nurturing and offering our hand of support?
Yeah. Yeah, they even didn't, I was actually on home arrest for about 6 months after I got out. And so that was a little bit difficult because I couldn't leave the house for more than an hour twice a week.
Why?
Um, being because I
You,
was
you're
on
out
home
of jail.
arrest.
Yeah, but
I
you
actually,
oh, is this before jail or after jail?
for what, after jail. So when
But
I
you've
went
served your
home, they wouldn't
time.
let
You've
me go
served your
home
time.
without, oh, but those, yeah, yes, you and I know that. But I had to wear an ankle monitor. I was under home arrest. So it wasn't until the following year that I could ask for permission a month in advance to go visit my family. And so working was also, it was very, very hard and trying, but finally, it was about 9 months after I got out that I finally could apply and work for myself again and be a nutritionist.
And how have you
It
found
just took
that
time.
now? Because you're all about healthy nutrition and feeding the body to feed, the mind and everything else. But now being a Buddhist and having gone through where you've gone through, how has nutrition changed for you?
It's changed because I see so much about our perspective to health and wellness and
Hmm.
how mindfulness practices,
Hmm.
being awake to why I should eat this or not eat that, that I want to prevent disease. I want to evolve and beyond the patterns that were brought in with me or that my parents gave me. And so I really do a little bit more coaching about around mindful practices because it's how we approach our health and wellness
Yes.
and get the motivation. It's not a magic pill. This is something that we do every day, that we have to be motivated to eat those vegetables.
Yes. Yes. Greens are
I'm
good. Greens
yes.
are good. Yes.
So I do incorporate more, I would say, lean towards coaching with mindful practices,
Hmm.
a way of about supporting your foundation and your own perspective of your health and wellness, your appreciation for your body and what it's doing for you, much more than just getting you from A to B,
Hmm.
but our emotions and how that is tied in to the gut. And so what we eat can affect our emotions. So again, those emotions, we want to have a good relationship. Buddhism never talks about good and bad emotions.
Hmm.
It's how we relate, how we let it flow. Emotions are allowed to be alive and
Yes.
flow through us. It's when they get stuck, when they are not looked at, when they get stuffed down, that they cause bigger problems, physical
Mm.
problems.
Hmm.
Grief can become depression
Yeah.
and, stress. I mean, stress is one word for a lot of different things.
Oh, it creates dis-ease, right? Which creates disease,
Exactly.
um, and I think you've got people say, but yes, I take my vitamins, I go to the gym, I eat properly. So why do I still have this? It's like, but you're doing that for your body, but where's your mind nutrition? Where's your heart and
Exactly.
soul nutrition? And you have to
Yes.
treat your body as a whole entity. And yes, put
Yes.
those good foods in. Make sure
Yes.
you get enough sleep. Make sure you get enough exercise. Make sure that your mind isn't going down the rabbit hole. Yes, those
Right.
emotions are an indication of where you are right now. Spend the emotion, but don't become emotional over the emotions because that's
Right.
when the emotion gets out of proportion and you've even forgotten what the hell it was all about in the first place. So it's really important to be present with oneself and be in tuned, mind, heart, body, and soul, and make sure that the nutrition we're putting in is the verbiage that's going in from ourselves
Yeah.
and around us, right? And the food we're putting in and what we're putting out
Mhm.
to everyone else.
Yeah. And that, to me, the little steps became so much more important.
Mm,
And those, we need to celebrate ourselves
yes.
and we need to remind ourselves, hey, I am strong. Guess what? I have cut out soda pop
Yes.
because of the sugar. And to me, that doesn't mean you say sugar is bad. It doesn't mean that. I love a good dessert,
Yes.
but it's going to be eaten very, very consciously. And I'm going to do it in a conscious time frame. I'm not going
Moderately.
to have,
Hmm.
yes, exactly.
A slice of the
Yeah,
cake, not the whole cake, and not every night.
exactly. Exactly.
Because you appreciate
Perfect.
it when it's less often. than when it's in
Yes.
front of you all the time, right? So it's make it special, because when you do, the gratitude of having that treat, right, is so much more. And of course, there's other different type of sugars you can have. There's raw sugar, not processed sugar, that you
Right.
can have that's much healthier
Yeah.
for you. It's the processed stuff and the fructose and all of that stuff that's in everything. So yeah, we do need to be
Right.
mindful what foods it is that we're eating. But I think once you get yourself into a pattern and as fresh as possible, right? Support your
Hmm.
local
Yeah.
farmers and things like this. Uh,
Yes.
your body will thank you, your mind will thank you, your spirit will thank you, and your consciousness will be more conscious. So it's a through and through, isn't it? So, but don't feel guilty about those guilty pleasures, right? This,
Exactly.
but make
And
sure they are
yeah,
pleasures
and
and not every day.
exactly. Yes, so true. Because, and then we celebrate, and our lives, to me, that fulfilled, the word fulfilled and satisfied. If we can be feeling that,
Yeah.
we can be happy. We
Yes.
can cultivate happiness. That's something that, you know, is something I say now to a lot of my clients, but that doesn't, it has to do with nutrition. And at the same time, it's that put the work in, step up to care for yourself in a
Hmm.
gentle, kind manner. And then you'll have more of that to give to everybody else around you.
Your cup will runneth over. Right? The
Yes,
more abundant you are, the cup you
exactly.
runneth over. And here you are having gone from this injustice, which, yes, I do not want people to forget that, because there are so many other people out there that don't have the same strength, that didn't find that inner strength out there, and that are shattered by this, knowing they're innocent,
Right.
and put into an arena where they are stripped away of humanity. And how do they find their inner humanity amongst this place that treated them like nothing? And we need to really look at that system, especially in America. Here in Canada, I hope we don't have it that bad. I haven't heard stories like that yet, though I have heard other stories. But we know America is particularly bad at this because they privatized the jail system. We
Right.
know there's kickbacks with police force. We know that they're under a numbers game. I don't care who's in jail as long as somebody is for the crime. And, the whole system, this is why people wanted to defund the police. It wasn't so much, it is defunding the way the policing is done. And like police should
Yes.
actually have social workers with them when they go out to meet certain people to find out, does the person have Alzheimer's? Is the person autistic? Is the person going through
Right.
a stressful thing before you bring out your gun and shoot them? And we need to demilitarize the police force.
Absolutely.
And so, yes, an overall needs to happen, an overall needs to happen of the prison system, and overall needs to happen society from ground up, because it is absolutely dysfunctional right now, and nobody benefits other than the opulent few, and they have
Hmm.
no conscience. And so
Hmm.
they're not out there for you. And so we really need to look at the injustice of this, but then also celebrate who you are today because of it, and what you are doing today, and that who you have become. And then this book, beautiful illustration, Buddha behind bars, with the little window, the bird, and the sunlight shining through, you in your meditation, of how, I had another Buddha actually who um, would take people into Times Square, and how to meditate amongst the chaos, right?
Hmm.
How to be the mountain amongst the chaos. And we talk about meditation and peace and quiet, but how do you find the peace and quiet amongst the chaos? And that's what you
Right.
had to find, was that peace and quiet, that central calmness amongst the chaos, which was your sanctity and your sanity that got you through it. And so now you've written this book, which tells the story of how you got there, obviously restricted because there's still Big Brother looking at you, but also your triumph of who you've become today. So this is a wonderful book that you're putting out. Now it's not quite ready to go out yet, right? So can it be
No,
pre-ordered
you
at all?
can. You can order it on Amazon. You
Wonderful.
can
So
get it
it's
on Amazon.
it's on
Yeah.
Amazon, but you are going to be doing a funding platform, which, please, folks, I
Yes.
really, 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 really want you to get behind her, because she can have this case against her expunged, which means that she can travel, she can do things and not constantly be imprisonated for the rest of her life. She's already paid far too much time for a crime she did not commit. And she can purchase this, what do they call it?
It's
The
a presidential pardon.
presidential
Yeah.
pardon. And so she needs money in order to do that. So, and you know, money just, I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I probably would not survive too well in there because it, you know, I'd be putting people straight, and that probably wouldn't go down too well because I can't stand injustice. It's the Libran in me. I like to see things well balanced, and I hate to see injustice. But I want people to get behind the book. Not only read it for
Thank you.
yourself, but read it just to see what's going on in your society, and that, you know, yes, Colin's strong. She had the family support. Um, she stepped up to do this so that they won't go after her brother, her other brother.
Yeah.
She was the sacrificial lamb here, and she never should have been. It never should have happened. That's the injustice of it all. And through this, a brother that she's never seen again, whether he's dead or alive, she does not know. And that can be heartbreaking as well. The not knowing is even worse than knowing if he has actually passed somewhere along the line. And it, you know, there's so much wrong here, but she made so much right come from it. So let's celebrate her for who she is today, what she's learned, what she's now teaching and doing in her own nutritional platform. And please, you know, look at her nutritional platform because we all need it, and she takes it up so many steps higher of whole nutrition, mind, body, heart, and soul, not just food nutrition. But let's get behind her with this funding platform that's going to be here on her show page. So if you're just listening to this by audio, all you do is go to selfdiscoverywisdom.com and you put in her name, which is Collin, Collin, Jennifer Ruiz, Ruiz. Put in her name and her shows will come up. The Injustice Served is where we're going to be showing her book, and also where the platform is for the funding. And also you can listen back to her other show as well. Facebook, Buddha Behind Bars, Instagram, Collin Ruiz 1, and then Ruiz, Ruiz, Collin, Collin at gmail.com. And also she has Holistic Nutrition LLC on Facebook as well. No site at this present moment, hun?
No what?
No site? You don't have a site at this moment?
Not yet. It's in process.
Right.
It's
So we
in
will add that to
process.
a show page as it comes up.
Yes, I will.
You know, it's when she told me about this, because I said, where have you been? And when she told me about this, I mean, I was just outraged, outraged. I'm still outraged. I just cannot believe in this day and age that we're allowing this to happen. It is criminal. This is criminal. And just because people wear a uniform or they stand behind what they think is the law and they take the law into their own hands for their own agenda is criminal. And we need to look at this system because Collin made it out because she's strong and she went in and she took Buddha with her. But there are so many of them out there. That girl goes on a date, a first date, and goes to jail for it, for Christ's sake, right? And not everybody is as strong as she is, and not certainly nobody's getting support that they need in there. So we need to step up and be that support, folks, because this is wrong, and we need to speak out. You can start off by buying her book, Buddha Behind Bars. It's on Amazon. Go and get it and make a great conversational piece. I talked to you about having book clubs, having podcast clubs, listening to the podcast, reading the book, and having a conversation, because it's through your awareness and your conversing with each other and sharing it out with other that we bring the problem to the surface, and then we start inviting people to do something about it. So please, you could be a part of the solution. Collin,
I love that. Thank you so much. I appreciate everything that you're doing. It's
right back at you, darling.
wonderful.
I'm so happy that you found your strength and that you have incorporated everything that you learned, that you chose to have a lesson from it, that you chose to grow stronger from it and not crumble and get caught up in the bitterness. Because, my God, you had every right to be bitter and every right to be angry, but you chose a different path. And through that, you found your strength and you became strength for others. And now you are that warning in the book of what is wrong, but also again, that whatever journey we're dealt with, what we can do about it. So
Yes.
thank you for your courage and your strength and your abilities and sharing this out, and keep being the awesome person that you are.
I will. I feel so blessed. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Folks, there's a lot of things wrong out there. And the more that you go la, 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 and choose not to listen to it, the more they get away with it. When we become the chorus of accountability, when we become the persistent chorus of accountability, without pitchforks, without violence, but in harmony against what is wrong, the wrong has to change. But it does not change if we turn a blind eye. So let's put things right for all the innocent people in there. Even the guilty people that are guilty through different circumstances are not getting the help they need, right? Let's treat people as human beings and not as humanoids, okay? Thank you so much, Collin, my darling.
Thank you.
Until next time, folks, remember, we may be the problem in society, but we also could be the solution. And it's up to us. It's our choice. Until next time, bye for now. We hope that you enjoyed the show. There are so many more for you here on selfdiscoverywisdom.com. Just go to the podcast tag at the top there and you will see all the many genres and all 3,000 shows ready for your listening. We are here to serve you, to help you on your journey of life, and we know that through inspiration, it begets invitation. We are supported by you, the listeners, and those that we interview. Anything that you can spare us in donation would be greatly accepted, and we do hope that you enjoy the next show.